you had this long-standing incumbents that you were using for customer engagement. We don't have to name them. What did MoEngage demonstrate technically or maybe relationally that gave you the confidence throughout the whole RFP process that they could execute better?
So, I mean, we just talked about my 200 plus questions. Like, so Johnson is, I think he's head of North American sales at Mongage right now. I first met Johnson in this RFP process, and we developed a relationship because he had humor, but he was the one like I've been the responses from. We'd email back and forth almost daily, right? So I developed a relationship, but not only about Mo Engage, it gave me a sense of how the potential vendors at the time would be to work with, right? So I think through that process, I mean, even yes, we're still working with Mo Engage now, but John and then the relationship I developed with John, that's memorable, right? It stands out. I didn't have that type of relationship with any of the other candidates. There's one vendor that I looked at where they went through the motions. Like their answers were so brief and short that I wasn't even sure what they were telling me. And, I would have had to almost follow up on every single one. What do you mean by this? What do you mean by this? You know, so it was whole spectrum. But, I think with Mo, at least for me, that relationship started during the RFP process because we had an engaging back and forth answering technical questions. And if you can have fun doing that, that says a lot, right? I think, but as far as like the selection process goes, we essentially had three finalists. One was a company I had worked with previously that had a really good relationship, and I loved working with them, but our ask was a little bit of a stretch for them. They were more of a traditional ESP, and we had the whole mobile component. The other two, the two finalists, I mean, from a product perspective, it was sort of relatively same. I think, we would have been able to get messages out with either the product. So what made the distinction? I mean, I think one was level of confidence. So we had a super aggressive timeline. So I had a contract that ended January 19th, 2024. Still remember the date. And, I was talking with Gage about contract, but even this like the sales process, right? I think I announced the finalists on Labor Day, so beginning of September, and when we had to do demos, right? So we had a very, very short timeline. So I would say during the demos, one finalist was like, yeah, I think you could do that, right? They essentially were saying we were crazy, but yeah, I think you could do that. And Mo Engage had like a project plan. This is how we would do that. So
Mm.
just there, the distinction, one, like having a project plan, even if you're taking some, liberties because you don't know everything exactly, that at least showed me how you approached it. And you're approaching it like this is doable. This is how we're going to get there. The other one was like, yeah, we'll do our best, right? So that was like the beginning of that. I think even during, demo process is about transparency. Like, yeah, we don't have this right now, but we could get that for you if you select this. Well, if you select us, we can get it for you by this date. I think having that type of certainty about your product, that knowledge about your product, it comes through. So, and again, for me, that's very appealing because I like to work with vendors who know their product. I don't want to work with a vendor who has like a third party integrator model. That is completely unappealing to me. So, through this process, I get to know the vendors who truly know their product and what type of support they would have. So, again, speaking of mulligans, these are all signals that we saw, at least I saw during the RFP process, the demo process, and then afterwards. I mean, yeah, so that was sort of how we ended up with Will Engage as a
Yeah.
partner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so crazy that, and it just resonates with me so much that the people part of it is so important.
Mhm.
Who are the people that you're working with? And even with my own team, when we're doing some vendor evaluations, the thing that really stands out to me after they watch like demos and talk to partners is that they say they really liked the account team that they were working with, and conversely, it the opposite is true. Like, if they don't get a good vibe from them, if they're maybe, like, even, like, kinda disrespectful when answering questions, like, we don't wanna work with them, and it's crazy that people forget about that. Um, why don't we talk a little bit about scale? Because, I think SoundCloud does over 100 million messages or something like that, and you have hundreds of campaigns. What sort of made you confident that this new platform you were going to choose could actually support it? What did you do, like sandbox testing, or did you do like pilot, or was it just really their track record? Like, how did you think about, were you kind of worried that they wouldn't be able to handle it? Like,
Yeah,
tell us about that.
it's a great question. And in my time at CNN, like I've seen where scale makes the thing go down many, many, many times. So coming into SoundCloud, that's like a fear in the back of my mind. Is it going to scale? Because again, I'd had an experience where it doesn't many times. So for when we were going through this process, it was understanding who your current clients are in the vendor, right? So, but even like when I was looking at the population set that I was going to use, right? I actually had a number of vendors from Southeast Asia on my list because my thought process there is like, well, if you're based out of India and you have clients who are dealing with all the people in India, you probably can handle my scale. So that was sort of some of my rationale there. Not all of my consideration set was from India, but I mean, I would say probably like, I had at least at 1.3 and I was looking initially at 7, right? So that was a piece of it. But I think the other thing, at least specifically with MoEngage, so MoEngage has other music streaming clients in India, right? So and I'm just asking about that, right? So, well, how big is, I think Ghana is one in India. Well, kind of a comparable size to what we're doing, although it's all in India. They have like at least 3 that I saw. They have some others outside of India, but from a scale perspective, I mean, that was a good sign. I did reference calls. So, Logan allowed me to speak with, the music streamer in India who has a similar type of scale. So that all helped me develop confidence because again, we had a very short timeline. I mean, I was doing demos in September. I mean, we were taking, contracts in October because we had to get off in mid-January. If I had lots of time and previous RFPs, I had done sandboxes. Like when I did RFP at CNN, I had 4 vendors. One said we're not going to do a sandbox, so they knocked themselves out. The other 3 did do sandboxes, and I've done that before, and it's super helpful because it gets people hands on. And yeah, I do like this, and no, I don't like this. They'll completely see the value in doing a sandbox. I just didn't have a lot of time.